Fantastic Four: First Steps is a great superhero movie, the best live-action Fantastic Four movie we have ever seen, and should be one of the cornerstones of the MCU moving forward. Since Endgame, the MCU has fallen out of favor, with many becoming fatigued with the superhero genre, and the newer films taking a dip in quality. I myself have been mostly checked out of the MCU, having only watched Spider-Man: No Way Home and Deadpool and Wolverine of the post-Endgame movies, and even then, I waited to watch them on streaming, rather than see them in theaters. However, I have been eagerly awaiting Fantastic Four: First Steps. Even though they aren't highly regarded, I have a soft spot for the mid-2000 Fantastic Four movies, and was excited to see Marvel's first family on the big screen once again. Part of the appeal for me was that First Steps takes place in its own self-contained universe, making it so that anyone can jump in and enjoy the movie, without having to watch hours of mid-Disney Plus shows. I think this was a great decision, because not only did it give us a super interesting world with a cool retro future aesthetic, but it really allowed First Steps to feel like a new beginning for the MCU. Many of the movies in phases 4 and 5 were continuing stories of characters that started before the Infinity Saga, with some of them becoming tired and losing much of what made them exciting in the first place. By having the Fantastic Four start off in their own universe, I think it allows people to get reinvested in the MCU and what's to come, as they want to follow these new characters that feel incredibly fresh. Also, for the purposes of this video, I will be going into full spoilers, so here is your warning. I think the narrative of this movie is really strong. With the Fantastic Four's origins having already been told before in the live-action medium, I understand the decision to set it 4 years after they initially gained their powers. The movie does a good job of relaying to the audience what happened and how they developed, without using a whole lot of screen time on it. I feel like they do a good job showing us who these characters are and how they got here in a very succinct way. I loved how the main crux of the story was so tied to the idea of family, and how personal it was for our heroes. Becoming new parents is something a lot of people can relate to, especially with the anxiety leading up to the birth, the questioning of whether or not you are ready to be a parent. The movie takes something familiar and ups the ante, as the baby on the way brings with him unknown potential and superpowers, heightening the character's anxiety. The movie continues to build on this idea with the news that Galactus, an all-powerful celestial being set on destroying Earth, enters the fray, and offers to stay his hand in exchange for Reed and Sue's baby. Putting them in this position is so interesting, as they grapple with Galactus being seemingly unstoppable, and the knowledge that they could save everyone if they commit the ultimate sacrifice. Much of this movie has a very serious tone, and you really feel for the characters and the insurmountable odds that they are up against. It was truly gripping watching them try and figure out how to defeat Galactus. I think another reason why I love this being in its own self-contained universe is that as an audience member, you can fully believe that Galactus could actually win. I was kind of expecting him to win, and following their defeat, the Fantastic Four fleeing to the main MCU timeline. So when they managed to overcome him, despite the odds, it was a genuinely gratifying moment. As great as the climax of the film was, in my opinion, the best scene in the whole movie was the space sequence. It was great seeing them treat with Galactus, where you get to see what they are up against. The chase sequence as they try to escape is incredibly tense, as the Silver Surfer is relentless in her pursuit. Adding to the craziness is Sue giving birth in the middle of it all. We get to see Ben show his prowess as a pilot, Reed's quick thinking as he has the idea of flying close enough to a black hole to suck the Surfer in. There are also cool little moments like when Johnny is shooting at the Surfer. His shots are all warped and out of whack because they're in hyperspeed. It's little details like this that make the scene so great. Having recently rewatched and ranked all 4 previous live-action Fantastic Four movies, I came into First Steps knowing that if this movie hoped to succeed, they needed to nail the characters and the dynamics between them. I can happily say that they did just that. When the cast was initially announced, I was a little skeptical about the casting of Pedro Pascal as Reed Richards and Joseph Quinn as Johnny Storm. Even though I like both actors and everything I've seen them in, I was worried worried that they were cast not because they were the best choice for the roles, but because they seemed to be Hollywood's new It Boys, being cast in just about everything. However, it turns out that they are getting cast in everything for a reason, because these boys, they can act. In my opinion, this is the best Reed we have gotten on the big screen, and he is easily the most interesting character in the movie. I really like how Pascal changed his speaking voice and inflection, helping to show Reed's incredible intellect, stoic nature, and the care he takes in choosing his words. It's clear that Reed's mind is constantly running a million miles a minute.
You borrow my brain for 5 seconds and just be like, dude, can't handle it, unplug this bastard.
He is relentless in his pursuit of knowledge, seeing it as his best tool to help the people of his world. He might be a rubber man, but his true superpower is his big ass brain. That is why he is so scared when he comes across something that he doesn't understand. As he and Sue enter parenthood, he can't stop himself from running through all of the possibilities, knowing that his and Sue's DNA has been altered. And as a result, he worries what that could mean for their son. I think what adds to Reed's complexity is that when faced with Galactus and his offering of leaving Earth alone in exchange for Franklin, he actually considers the offer, even if he hates himself for it. I also think Reed, along with Sue, are where we really get to see the hopelessness of the situation sinking in. Reed's plan of using Franklin as bait also adds to his character that he is willing to consider the unthinkable. I really love how Reed is portrayed in this movie, and how he must come to grips with embracing the uncertainty that comes along with fathering a super baby. Where Reed is the brain, Sue is the heart. I think she is really strong in this movie, and offers a counter perspective to Reed's callous logic. She is completely unwilling to give up Franklin, and even though she doesn't know what his nature will be, she loves him unconditionally, and is willing to give up her own life for him. I think the scene where she forces Galactus into the teleporter highlights this aspect of her character, and how a mother will move heaven and earth to protect her child. I also really liked her speech when the world seems to be turning on the team, after Reed's word vomit press conference. Like seriously dude, just say Galactus wouldn't negotiate, and then you won't have a mob trying to sacrifice your baby. I liked how even though she wasn't willing to give up Franklin, that didn't mean she was willing to give up on the people of Earth, and that she would fight to protect them just as fiercely. Johnny was great in this movie, even though he was different from previous iterations of the character that we have seen. I really appreciated his willingness to risk his own life to protect the ones he loves. At one point, he offers himself up in place of Franklin, showing just how far he will go to save others. It was really moving when he was going to sacrifice himself at the end of the movie to finish off Galactus. He is really fun without crossing the line into being annoying. The tone of the movie is really serious, and even though he adds some levity to it, he doesn't conflict with it. Just by the nature of their power sets, he's the one to interact most with the Silver Surfer, and I think this made for a good dynamic. I think changing the Silver Surfer's gender actually works well here, as it brings out another aspect of Johnny's character. We also get to see Johnny being smart, as he translates the Surfer's language and is able to get through to her. I think the Johnny-Surfer relationship is really important, and ultimately is the reason he doesn't have to sacrifice himself. I think Ben is great in this movie. He is a delight in every scene he is in, and actually looks pretty good. I was interested to learn that his appearance was a combination of CGI and practical effects. Moments like where Ben can tell Sue is pregnant just with a look is awesome, and shows just how connected the four are. I also like how we get to see Ben's prowess as a pilot in the space sequence, an element of his character that I feel has been underexplored in live action. My only complaint in regards to him is that in terms of the main narrative, I feel like he wasn't given enough to do. He kind of has his own little C-plot where he is crushing on a school teacher, but it never really goes anywhere. Still, for the most part, I like what they did with Ben, and feel like he has a ton of potential to be explored in future installments. I feel like there was a ton of love poured into this movie. The retro future aesthetic is really cool and looks great on screen. It feels like a truly lived-in world, and I honestly want to spend more time in it. First Steps almost felt like it was the third movie in a Fantastic Four trilogy, with Galactus being the toughest villain they've ever faced. And honestly, I find myself wanting to watch those first two movies in the trilogy that don't actually exist. Even though I am excited to see the Fantastic Four in Doomsday, I almost don't need to see them join the MCU. I I would be completely fine with them staying in their own little universe, where we get to further explore this world. Even though I really liked the story, maybe my biggest complaint is just how fast some of it is being told. Having Franklin being born in the first Fantastic Four movie seemed weirdly fast to me, as we don't really get to know these characters before they become parents. It seems like something that should have been introduced in a sequel. Also, after the post-credit sequence, he is 4 years old, which continues this feeling of speed racing their story. I get that Franklin is a really interesting character in his own right, but I feel like there should be no rush to get to his story. I also just wanted to mention that at times, we get a bit of CG baby going on. It's not too bad, and honestly, I feel like I noticed it the most when Ben was holding him. Also, it needs to be said that the score of this movie is fantastic. I suppose it should be no surprise considering that the composer, Michael Giacchino, is responsible for the score of Lost. In my opinion, a lot of the MCU scores have been fine, but mostly fade into the background. I think Giacchino's score for this movie actively elevates every scene that it's used. It feels distinct in a way most Marvel scores don't, really lively and with its own unique voice. I thought it was a nice gesture to give a cameo to the cast of the 1994 Fantastic Four movie, acknowledging the hard work they put into that project and recognizing their role in the evolution of these characters. In my previous video where I ranked the past Fantastic Four films, I used 4 categories to rank them: uniforms, story, villains, and team dynamic. Each rating is out of 5. I will use these same categories now to rank first steps. In terms of uniforms, I like them more and more every time I see them. The shade of blue really pops, and the white complements it nicely. Also, I think they look even better in the movie itself than they do in any of the promotional material, as seeing them on screen really shows the details of the suits and gives them a tactile feeling. I like how the belt breaks up the suit, as opposed to previous iterations that we got. The Fantastic Four stylized spacesuits we got in this movie are also really great. Not only do they look cool, but they help showcase another aspect of these characters. For uniforms, I am giving them a 5 out of 5. For the story, I really liked not only how personal it was for our characters, but how desperate they were in trying to figure out how to stop Galactus. I'm giving the story section a 5. For villains, I found Galactus and the Silver Surfer compelling, but almost more for how they affected the plot than the characters themselves. I found Galactus only interesting insofar as the desperate situation he forced the Fantastic Four into. As an actual character, I don't think we really learn that much, other than he is really big and really hungry. I think there is a lot that could be explored with his character, but we didn't really see all that much of it in this movie. For villains, I'm giving the movie a 3. The most important element for any Fantastic Four movie is the team dynamic. I think this movie largely succeeds in this respect, as all of their characters are interesting in their own right and have compelling intra-group relationships. I also appreciate how we get to see different dynamics when they are in different situations. It was cool to see how their dynamic as astronauts differed from their dynamic as a family versus their dynamic as public figures. I think the film did a good job of showing all of the individual relationships. It's not like Fantastic, where 2 members literally don't exchange a word. We get to see all of these characters interact in a fun way. For team dynamic, I'm giving a 5, giving First Steps a total score of 18 out of 20. I really liked Fantastic Four First Steps, and it is one of the best superhero movies that I've seen in a while. Even though it is slightly underperforming at the box office, I am optimistic about the future of this franchise and fully on board with these characters. I think they will be one of the cornerstones of the MCU moving forward, and I think that is some really good news. If you somehow made it to the end of the video, I want to thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, I would appreciate it if you liked and subscribed. It really helps out the channel. Thank you for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video.